The question of the century, the question that your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents have been asking. Plastic pontoon boats versus John boats. What's the move? I personally have spent a lot of time in the Pond Prowler 10, and I just got and have spent hours and caught quite a few fish in the Sundolphin American 12 plastic John boat. I own them both, I love them both, and today we're going to compare and contrast. What's the difference? What are some of the reasons you might want to consider? And, maybe one is better for your situation than the other, but they are very different boats with distinct different features. They act different, they're priced different, and they are different. Everybody asks me, Grayson, which one do you like better? I don't have an answer, at least not yet. Now, before we get into it, I don't ever usually promote it, but I do have an Amazon list in the description of my videos of every single mod that you see on my boats. And on the main channel, you can click the link and you can check out my Amazon shop. So if you see anything in this video that you want to get your hands on, some of them are Amazon links, some of them are different links, but long story short, you can click on whatever you want and you can pick it up for yourself. I greatly appreciate it. I don't really promote those links all that much. I do get a kickback, but last month we shipped out about $10,000 worth of revenue of boat parts, and you guys are absolutely loving it. So I figured I'd bring it up, and you can go check out any of the mods on any of my boats with a link in my description. Let's get into it. Anyway, let's talk first about my Pond Prowler 10 and the benefits of the plastic pontoon format versus the John boat. Now, this doesn't just go for the Pond Prowler 10. This goes for the Quest Angler, the Bass Raider, the Bait, all those different plastic pontoon styles. They're going to vary differently from model to model, manufacturer to manufacturer, but for the most part, we're talking about the basic format and just the boat itself. So let's start with the pontoon benefits over my John boat. First of all, a lot of these, if not all of them, and my Pond Prowler 10 does come pre-wired through the hull for a bow-mounted trolling motor. I have heard some of these John boats do have this feature. None of the ones I've seen, none of the ones that I've seen that are available, and certainly my John boat does not have this option. But what's really nice is that there is a battery tray in the stern of the pontoon boats. You can put it in, and a lot of them are pre-wired. You've got wires sticking out of the stern, you hook them up to the battery, they're pre-wired inside the hull up into a traditional plug for your bow mount trolling motor. That is a big deal if you want to run a small 3.5 horse or under outboard on the stern, and then you have a bow mounted trolling motor with power right there, and you don't have to do anything fancy running cables all throughout looking ugly and annoying. That is a huge plus and a huge benefit. And I also should say that the pontoon boats do average a higher price from $100 to $200 to $300, depending on who and where you buy it from, over the John boats. So the John boats will save you hundreds of dollars. The pontoon boats come with 2 swivel seats. That is a really big deal. The John boat comes with 2 benches, which you can put swivel seats on. You can drill them directly in there. You can have the clamp-ons, or you can do a more traditional fitting system, but it's going to cost a lot more money. It's going to spend a lot more time, and that's just something that you're going to have to plan and do right if you really want it to look good and perform on the same level of the seats that simply come on the Pond Prowler or the Bass Raider or any of those pontoon boats. Even some of the 8-foot models, they come with 2 seats. Not all of them, but some of them do come with 2 swivel seats that can mount any other regular boat seat on top of it. They fix right onto it, no problem, interchangeable. My seats are custom, a lot of other people's seats are custom. So that is a major benefit. It's just having a 360 swivel seat straight out of the gate. That is a huge upgrade, and I greatly appreciate it. But the Pond Prowler doesn't have any benches, so they're going to have to do something there. I'm just glad that they at least come with 2 nice swivel seats at the perfect height, and I'm 6'1". All right, the pontoon boats, they're just flat out more stable, and that's for a couple reasons. Even though they're smaller boats, 10 and 8 feet versus the 12 feet on the John boats, they are pontoon style. They're not a flat bottom. They have 2 tunes. And that is one of the major contributing factors to why it is so stable. Now, I've been pleasantly surprised with the stability of my John boat. People made it sound way worse than it really is. I love standing on the benches and flats fishing. It is really comfortable and honestly more stable than I thought. But there's no denying that the Pond Prowler is significantly more stable. If you go back and you check out my Pond Prowler stability test, you can stand at the time I was about 170 pounds, directly on the gunnels, and it didn't flip. It was pretty impressive. Now, if I did that with the John boat, I would flip it. So the pontoons do make a huge difference in stability, especially when you're standing up. But the way that those pontoon boats are designed is it forces you to keep your center of gravity right in the middle of the boat. The John boat has, well, thinner gunnels. They don't have the cup holders. They don't have the the rails, or I guess whatever you want to call it, for the seats to slip into. They don't have the edges. So basically, the gunnels on the pontoon boats are like this thick compared to this thick on the John boat. So on the John boat, you can get way closer to that gunnel, which puts more weight on the very edge of that boat. And without having pontoons, you can flip it if you try to stand on the gunnel, but it's not really an option anyway. And I've never felt like I was going to flip the John boat. With that saying, my Pond Prowler is just flat out more stable, even though it's a smaller vessel all around. Most of these pontoon boats come minimum with 2 rod holders. Some of them actually have 4. So 2 good rod holders. My John boat has 4 rod holders, but they're not good. My Pond Prowler has 2 pretty decent rod holders, so that is a major benefit. A major drawback is you have nothing on the stern. So if you got, you come out of the factory, you come home from Bass Pro, Academy, Dick's, whatever, you bring it home, and well, whoever's controlling the motor, they ain't gonna have a place to put their rods. And it's such a small boat, it's difficult to lay it on the gunnel properly without getting in the way. It's gonna reach up to the person on the front, and they've got 2 rod holders, but when we first got the pontoon boat, I just constantly had to have my wife and friends just pass them the rod, and it's like, all right, now give it back, I'm ready for it back. And it was just annoying, and I installed 2 clamp-on rod holders on the stern, and it's been perfect. And it's actually a great trolling setup, and I caught a nice bluefish trolling the flats of the Panama City port just the other day. Also, big benefit, not a huge deal, but a big benefit is it comes with 4 cleats. 2 on the bow, 2 on the stern, out of the factory for easy mooring. Now, I can't even drop anchor. I can't tie up to a dock. I can't tie up to another boat. I can't tie up to anything because my John boat has 0 cleats at all. Now, $20, you get a nice set of 4-inch stainless steel cleats. You drill them in, it takes 20 minutes. It's no big deal. And honestly, the cleats on the pontoon boats are pretty crappy. They get ripped off. They're way too small. I can really only use paracord to moor my boat. It's a whole thing, but at least they do come with it. Honestly, I would prefer the pontoon boats not come with it, and I put some legit, better secured, and bigger, higher quality cleats on it, but it is nice that they come out of the factory. I've never had to upgrade my cleats. I just have to tie up to docks and other boats just using paracord because that's the only cord that is thin enough to get into those tiny little baby cleats on my Pond Prowler. So I will be putting cleats on the John boat, and they will be much better. They will be much higher quality. They will be stronger and bigger, so kind of a trade-off there, but the Pond Prowler does come with 4 cleats. Also, my Pond Prowler came with 2 sturdy carry handles on the stern of the vessel, and some models actually come with 2 carry handles on the stern and 2 carry handles on the bow. Now, my boat in particular does have carry handles on the bow, but it came factory with the stern. The bow was aftermarket, so you do get 2 carry handles over the 0 carry handles you get on the John boat, which is fine, but if your hands are slick, it's going to be slippery, that's for sure, especially that plastic. Those are all of the benefits of the pontoon boat platform over the John boat. Now let's talk about the benefits of the John boat over the pontoon boat. Number 1, it's just flat out cheaper. Now, I bought my Pond Prowler used for $300 with those aftermarket seats, with the an extra paddle, a paddle holder, with the bow installed carry handles, and I think one other mod. So I got an absolute steal, but they do sell for $800 brand new before taxes and shipping and registration fees. So you're going to pay $800, and that's pretty much the cheapest. The Quest Angler is up to $880, and some of the Bass Raiders get up to $1,200. So you are going to be spending a lot versus the cheaper John boats, which average about $600. In fact, I got mine on sale for $599. The next week, now they're on sale for $549. So for $600 after taxes and the cost of the boat, $600, you've got a freaking 12-foot John boat 2 feet longer than any of the biggest pontoon boats. And if you're on a tight budget, that can make a huge difference. Saving $200-300. Well, there's a nice lithium battery and a 55-pound thrust saltwater trolling motor right there for that price. That is pretty hard to argue with. Also, another benefit over the John boat is with the same trolling motor, it actually does move faster through the water due to less resistance with the flat bottom design versus the pontoon design. But here is the big difference. My Pond Prowler is max rated at 3.5 horsepower on the stern, but the John boat is rated for 6 horsepower. So I can put twice the horsepower on there plus less resistance in the water, and you can just flat out go faster. People are putting even higher horsepowers. People are going 15, 20 miles an hour on these John boats, and that's not something that I would want to do in my Pond Prowler. So you flat out can simply just go faster in every way you look at it, which I greatly appreciate. Next is the biggest one for me, and you simply get more room. It's a wider boat, and it's 2 foot longer. Now, I know 2 feet might not sound like that big of a difference, but folks, my wife and I really notice it. I mean, we are farther separated. I can take way more gear. The middle little cutout between the two benches is always clear. The front, listen, there is just more room. This means you can bring more gear, more tackle, more food, live wells, flat out just more stuff. There is more room. And I really notice it. The 2 feet make a big difference. And, honestly, that's why I'm taking the John boat out every single time. I just have more breathing room and it just feels nice. 14 foot is a little bit too big. At that point, you can't put it in the bed of your truck. You can, but you'd have to have, kind of an extra large truck bed. You can't fit it on most small utility trailers. 12 foot is the perfect size, about as big as I'd want for these tiny boat builds, because you got to remember half the appeal is simply portability. How easy is it to just simply throw in the bed of a truck or throw on the roof of a car or lay sideways up against the wall of a garage? 12 foot is the max for me. 14 foot John boats, those are great. Those are even better, but they're more cumbersome. 12 foot is pretty much the cutoff, but you do really notice the difference in room. That is a huge benefit in my personal opinion. All right, so the benches. Now you might be saying, Grayson, if you just talked about how good the seats are in the Prowlers and the pontoon boats, why are you bringing up the benches? They don't even have seats. I will say, the benches are reinforced with foam and wood, so they are rock solid. I prefer having benches over seats because I like to fish on the flats. So you've seen a lot of my videos where I'm standing on the benches, casting way over my wife, around my wife, and just simply having that extra, foot of elevation. I can see down way more into the water. I'm usually fishing super calm, crystal clear grass flats in the bay here in Panama City, Florida. And half the time I am literally looking at what I'm casting towards. So it really helps with sight fishing, just getting up that extra height, being rock solid. It's nice and smooth and fairly stable, actually, surprisingly stable. That alone is a huge difference. People put the casting deck on the Pond Prowlers, but that's still not quite as high as the John boat. Plus, you have to build a casting deck. You can just stand on the benches as soon as you get home from freaking Tractor Supply and you're sight fishing. You've got more visibility. You've got more room. My wife likes to sit down on the front bench over the bow and fish, and I can just cast right over her, no problem. So I really do like the benches, specifically for the fact that I can put my whole weight on it. It's fairly stable, and I can just have better visibility. I really appreciate that. Also, if you did want to build a casting deck on this boat, you have way more room. People do build them all the time, and they just flat out, there's more room. There's more casting deck. Now, it's less stable than the Prowler if you have a casting deck, but you have more room for hatches, more storage, more room for accessories, live scope, finders, graphs, whatever it might be. You just have more real estate to work with, which is pretty awesome. We talked about this, but it does come factory with 4 rod holders. Now, they do work. At this moment, I have not installed aftermarket rod holders. We've got all the mods coming soon, but for now, the rod holders, they work, but really, they are perfect net holders. Those rod holders, as soon as I get the more permanent fixings in there, they're going to be obsolete and they're simply going to be used for the net, which is awesome. I'm going to have 4, a net holder right next to a rod holder, and we'll have 4 of each, and it's going to be freaking awesome. So I do appreciate that they installed those in there, but I'm going to have to install my own rod holders, really, but it's nice to have a place for the net. Another major benefit is the bow eye. That is that little hook that you can snap anything onto. You can snap a winch onto it. What I do is I have a carabiner attached to a paracord, attached to another carabiner that attaches to the handle on the utility trailer I have, but you can hook a winch up to it. It just, long story short, makes it way easier to attach it to the front of your trailer when you're putting it on it, whether it's a boat trailer or a utility trailer like mine, and pull it right out of the water, out of the way, and then you can put everything you need up in your boat. And when I'm launching my boat with the utility trailer, I take all the straps off, and all I have to do is back it in there, lift it a little bit, unhook it, and it slides right in. I did it with the Prowler too, but the Prowler, you have to install your own either bow eye or carry handles, just like I did, as you can see in there in the footage I showed you. My solution was attaching 2 carabiners to the carry handles, connected to 1 carabiner that goes to the handle of my utility trailer. But with the John boat, it just flat out comes with it. So I really appreciate that little touch. That's just an extra mod I don't have to worry about. And it's a pretty important mod because when I'm attaching it, pulling it out of the water, it's got the motor, it's got the battery, it's got the fish, it's got all my gear. So it needs to be really strong. If you screw it up on the Prowler, or any other boat like that, plastic boat, you could be just flat out ripping a hole really bad in the bow of your boat if it's not done properly. Also, the extra 2 feet, you got a little freaking table up there. Now, if you have 3 lightweight adults or 2 adults and a child can sit up there and act as a third bench. If you're all pretty lightweight and you got a nice outboard motor and your weights, most of the weight's in the back, then you could actually carry 3 people if you really wanted to. But really, it's nice to have that bench. My wife uses it for her coffee. You could use it for cutting bait. You can use it for rigging. You can use it for whatever you want. You know, eventually I'm going to install a seat on the front bench with a bow-mounted trolling motor and a graph. And that bench right there is going to be really good for drinks, tackle, soft plastics, lures, live bait, whatever it might be. It's just going to be nice to have that little shelf right there under where I'm going to have the trolling motor. And, you know, I don't have to turn around and go dig through the stern or behind me to get my tackle or whatever I need. You got a nice little bench right up there. With that being said, I love both boats, but right now I'm really in love with the John boat. I'm sure after 6 months, I'll be back in love with the Pond Prowler. And I just like having both so I can go back and forth and do whatever I want. I will say the Pond Prowler 10 is a killer solo boat. If I'm going solo, you know, it's easier to haul. It's easier to put in the trailer, and it's really stable. So if I'm doing a lot of standing, it's a good solo boat, a really good solo boat. 2 people is absolutely doable. I've taken 2 people many times out, and it is absolutely doable. But fishing 2 people on the John boat is more comfortable. In the terms of space, you're not going to have a nice backrest. You're going to have to install that on your own. But in terms of space and casting, you've just got more breathing room. But you know, if I'm taking someone else with me and I just want more room and I want to go faster, the John boat is the clear winner. Especially when I'm flats fishing, I can stand on that bench and my wife can sit down over the bow, and it's just really a perfect situation, and we can smash trout and whatever we're fishing for all day. Now, I will say, if you don't have a truck, if you don't have a trailer, really the Pond Prowler 10 and 8 is going to be, and I say the Pond Prowler, any of the Pontoon, the 10 foots and 8 foots, they're probably going to be the better option because a lot of folks do simply throw it up onto the roof rack of their car, of their SUV. You can haul it anywhere. A cargo van. A lot of folks use cargo vans, little box trailers. The pontoon boats, the 2 foot and the more narrow beam does make a difference. It can fit pretty much anywhere. It's crazy. It seems crazy, but it's really, really common for people to throw them on the top of their Honda Civic with a roof rack they bought on Amazon, and it's good to go down the highway. Add that extra 2 foot, the John boat's kind of pushing it. You can carry the Pond Prowler in really any vehicle aside from, of course, convertibles and coupes and smart cars and the weird little stuff. But if you do not have a truck, then I would highly consider the Pond Prowler in terms of you actually being able to get it somewhere comfortably to use it, right? Anyway, that is the main differences between the pontoon platform and the John boat platform that I have found. I love both boats. I'm keeping both boats. And right now I'm having a ton of fun on the John boat, but I had so many amazing memories on the Pond Prowler. And hey, we're going to keep taking it out here soon. Anyway, hit like and subscribe for more mods, more tiny boat fishing, and of course, stability tests, performance tests, all sorts of fun stuff. That's what we do here. Stay tuned for the fishing. If you're curious about any of the mods on all my boats, you can click the Amazon link in my description. I do have a little store and every itemized list of the mods on my boats.